SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 284. I'm your host, Spencer Presley, with a very delayed one-man show podcast. The mic and the audio are going to sound a little different than what we're used to today. This is being recorded at my day job while I am on lunch because it is the last day of August, and I have had a heck of a time getting guests on the show. I don't know if it's just because the summer's over, everyone's busy playing Soul Hackers, or people are just busy, but that is okay. I've had a couple of last minute guest changes, and really, there's not a lot of news going on. Ironically, now that Soul Hackers 2 is out worldwide, by the way, everybody, Soul Hackers 2 out everywhere, PlayStation 4, PS5, Xbox One, Series S, Series X, Windows, Steam, blah, blah, blah. Main focus of today's episode is I asked all of you out there, whether it be Discord, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, what do you think of Soul Hackers so far? And we're going to just talk about that. I've extensively talked about my opinion. I'm sure it'll still come out as I'm reading off what you all think. But in case you didn't know, you can check out my full-length review. I'll have it linked in the show notes below. You can check out my review of the game. I have a DLC buy or skip video. You can check out that. That's kind of just like a DLC overview / review of everything. And a little bit of a update for me. So as of this recording, I have done basically 99.9% of everything in Soul Hackers 2. I have one trophy left. I am on my third playthrough that is almost completed. And I've played through the game now on normal, hard, and very hard. And opinions have not changed. I'm still loving the game. I'll probably maybe see if I can get Slime on eventually. We can kind of talk about platinuming this game. This was such a funny one to me this seemed like such an easier platinum until I realized I didn't know exactly what I was doing, because it is still a very good trophy list and it is a very obtainable platinum that you still have to work for. But you can screw yourself out of it, and there are some confusing things the game does not really explain to you, or if you're just have really bad luck like me, you can screw yourself out of something. So this is going to be a 3 playthrough platinum trophy for me, unfortunately, and I only say unfortunately, not because I don't love the game. I really love the game. It's literally only unfortunate because I'm just staring at all of these other amazing games I am dying to get to. I still have not even started Xenoblade 3. So really just got to take this one off my list just because I got to get to the new hotness. But we have a little bit of news first. Not a lot really going on here, but first up, there was another Ultimax patch. So if you guys remember back at EVO 2022 this summer, they released a patch for PlayStation and PC that basically added in rollback netcode and some various bug fixes. This one is just basically, hey, here's some network improvements and miscellaneous bug fixes as well. There's no detailed patch notes. I haven't noticed any actual balance changes. I assume it's just all under the hood technical stuff. So for anyone out there who's wondering if you'd like to join the 7 of us who are still playing Ultimax on console or PC, please consider it. Still a great game, still super cheap. Nintendo Switch fans, I'm sorry. I'm sorry they just don't like you, apparently, but that's still a good version to play. Kind of going back to my review, it is really easy to dunk on the Switch version, but honestly, the Switch version is still the best place to experience that story. Because every other version of Ultimax just sucks to sit in front of a TV for 20-something hours and just have this game be read to you. And that's coming from someone who loves visual novels and Persona. But yeah, so Ultimax update, nice welcome surprise, but very minimal. Like, I don't even think Atlus has tweeted about it yet. The other news is very Japan centric, but a welcome one. The G Archive Project, who are mostly known for releasing old Japanese only phone games on Switch and I think they do a couple of PC things. They just announced they are releasing Last Bible Special 2, and as one of the three people in the world who've actually played this, especially in the West, I'm really, really excited for this one, way more than their other one they'd previously done. They'd previously, I think, like a couple months back, released another phone-only Majin Tensei, and it was such a success for them in terms of like they're a pretty small publisher. Like literally, Atlus is just giving them the publishing rights to put this on Switch and other places because Atlus knows that they can make no money from it. It's a Japanese only port, so really all they're doing is just putting it in a emulator and putting it on Switch. So it's a very low effort port, but it's cool just from like, hey, this is a really niche aspect of Megami Tensei history. So it's cool to see not only now Majin Tensei, like this phone game, be brought back to life, but now Last Bible Special too, which is even cooler. Like that's just like really nice to see. And I've been talking to the company there. They don't currently have plans to release in English, but they've like had a lot of attention from English fans. So I think they're definitely looking into it. I just don't think they might not have like the bandwidth to do it internally. So hard to say like they might like work with like a localization company or see if like basically they can then license out their engine and hopefully get the worldwide rights to get that figured out because like having those games in English wouldn't be huge. Like obviously, this is a game that's going to sell like a couple thousand digital downloads. Like this isn't like big at all, but it would be a nice like first step in terms of getting a lot of these like more niche Atlus games on modern consoles, especially the ones that were just trapped on Japanese phones. So I'm hoping to have Marshawn to kind of talk about that Last Bible in general and a couple of other things, hopefully relatively soon. But like I said, everyone's been crazy with school and life and a bunch of other things, so hard to say. But yeah, that's kind of it for news. Um, Still too early for Soul Hackers sales data, but I do definitely want to kind of talk about performance because it has been interesting. Like looking at how slow this year has been for bigger games, that even how quiet of a launch I think Soul Hackers 2 is has been very interesting. But we're going to get into the main meat and potatoes of this show. So we're going to start with our main topic. So in lieu of questions, I asked all of you a question, and we're just going to be talking about and see what does the internet slash Shin Megami Tensei SMTN family of people think of Soul Hackers 2 so far. So I asked this around 4 or 5 days, and by the time you're hearing this, it'll be almost a week after it's been out everywhere. So still pretty early on. I don't even think I know anyone else like who's gotten the game, who's beaten it, but it is also not a crazy long game. So, in no particular order, we're going to go with Twitter first. I think Twitter probably had the most replies. First one comes from Craven at Craven the Ripper. Says definitely has some flaws, but enjoying the game and find the four party members relatable in some way. Another benefit of the game, not just being about a bunch of high school kids. Digital Phantasm says, I love it. Been doing every request, which are the side missions, and trying to do everything. It's really fun. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm addicted. Been playing it while I'm off work. I don't even really mind the combat or the dungeon design, although press turn is still the best battle system. Jody DeHart says, I'm wondering what Saizo is capable of with those shark teeth. I mean, aren't we all? Like he's gotten into some biting things with Ash. That's all I'm gonna say. Heliofane says, I really don't like the environments. Ringo is saving the game for me though. Bilal says, I went into Soul Hackers 2 knowing that it is a low-budget game. In terms of story and the dungeons, it's good. There's nothing exceptional about it so far. 12 hours in. I just wish the game had a bit of a bigger budget. I wish that the Soul Matrix had a P5-like design, whereas it was different for each character. Yeah, so the Soul Matrix is like, there's really no excusing in terms of like, yeah, like you have a different soul matrix for each of your party members. So Arrow, Melody, and Saizo all have this basically mini dungeon that you continually go through and unlock different skills and stuff for. It's the exact same, just dungeon, just different puzzles and different layouts. So that's never really going to impress you, or in most people like that's an area that definitely just kind of screams, "Yep, we had a budget and this is how we used it." Keisha says, "I'm loving it. Though the picture you showed reminds me how almost every time Ash is on screen, I want to punch Saizo in the mouth. Dungeons are samey and repetitive, but I'm pleasantly surprised with how fun and tactical these Sabbaths are. Much better than TMS Encore. Interesting. Plus, good vibes all around. This is a very good, like, good vibes game. It's really like they perfectly timed this. I think with like a summer release. I really like think this is just that good, perfect spot of it's not crazy long. It's not crazy short, good, bright, colorful, like tone, like really good vibe piece for sure. I am Jamal says, very good. The dungeons can be quite boring and samey, but everything else I really like. TL yeah, definitely messed this one up. TL Irdic, they said, I'm loving it so far. Ended up getting it digitally because my physical copy sent by Shop Atlus that said I'd be playing it by release date might not even get here by this Friday, a week after launch. Have some requests and Aeon directives to do while checking out the Soul Matrix dungeon. Binyabik says, great game, awful side quest. Disgusting to put best slash only good side quest behind paywall DLC, but dungeons are a bit repetitive and not very exciting. So you're referring to the Lost Dungeon one. I find it interesting that you would think that the best side quests are. I mean, like, I'm thinking of each individual side quest in the Lost Numbers as separate quests you go on. Like, I think the collective experience, yeah, it's definitely the best side quest out of everything else because everything else is very much like go here, do this with this kind of enemy, grab this item, find this for me, locate this person. They're very, very samey and like not that like. There's a reason none of them are voiced. They're all very, very low budget. Even the like new game plus exclusive ones. So I definitely get that, but it's kind of weird. Like, I really wish there was a way to make sense of how to call the lost numbers because it's like, it's story DLC, but it's not related to the main story. It's its production value is way too high to just be considered side quests, but it's also not necessary at all to enjoy the game. So it's really weird. It's like they have like a mini expansion almost. Yeah, like it's a tough one and like kind of put down in a corner exactly. BNT says nothing surprising. Soul Hackers 1 is still better than this. I'd say they're so different, honestly. What's funny is I've actually been thinking a lot, and I was going to put this in news, but Video Games Plus, friend of the show, actually had a reprint of the original Soul Hackers on 3DS, and that absolutely sold out like instantaneously. They had a couple hundred copies that they were able to get reprinted, and they all just sold out. They were like $45 USD and just instantly gone. Um, Interesting because they've been doing a lot of reprints and stuff, and nothing has gone as fast as this one. I'm not sure if it's because a lot of the Atlus games, especially Soul Hackers, is one of the earlier Atlus games was just like the reason it went so fast, or maybe if it was because of Soul Hackers 2 just releasing, people were wanting a physical copy. I was just very, very surprised to see how fast that went. Random Task says, I'm enjoying it for the exact opposite reasons I enjoyed SMT 5. In SMT, the primary cast and atmosphere I found okay, but the combat, demon animations, voices were so much fun. While in Soul Hackers, it's definitely the inverse for me. I can't believe how much fun I'm having listening to Ringo being a gremlin. It's Psych Time says Fig's hot. Also, with that being said, I'm going to give the game a 7 out of 10. Undertown says, I love it. Definitely worth the $90 I spent for the digital premium edition. Interesting. Good to hear. Mako Tensei says, after 10 hours, I'm increasingly frustrated as to why it is not called Devil Summoner. I'll definitely understand that. It definitely wears a lot more Devil Summoner on its sleeve than it actually does Soul Hackers in terms of story and like things like that, but it is still the sequel to Soul Hackers because it takes place in that world. Pulp Critic Review says, so far I'm mixed. I like the art direction, but I find the dungeon design pretty lackluster. I like the characters, thought the story is a bit predictable, and the music is very forgettable. Wow. I think my biggest gripe is that it is called Soul Hackers 2, honestly. I think that's very fair. There's a lot of, as much as I love this game, there is still that thing of like, I think they should have just given this a subtitle, not a number, but I am aware that that makes it look a lot better. Titch says, haven't been able to play very much. Sad frowny face, which you know what? I appreciate you for at least commenting and meaning that you have played it at all. Progenitor of Monsters says, I'm about 20 hours in so far. I can say that it's definitely doing something I like a lot. The character designs and soundtrack have been a standout, and I love that they're using not as popular demons on the roster. I wish that more SMT titles use the urban legend type of demons. Yeah, the roster of demons has been one that I didn't actually expect to love as much as I did. Like the fact that I'm going through this game and I'm like, all right, no slime. Like that's a genuinely like big deal for me, just because it's like I'd rather see these weird demons we haven't seen in 3D before, like seeing Turbo Granny and like all these other like exclusive ones for the first time, like finally in 3D, and they look good is a really nice welcome. Degenter Gaijin, who I probably butchered your name, says, it's alright. I was hoping for something better. Story wise, it's slightly better than SMT 5, but 5 is greater in terms of gameplay. Not what I was hoping for, but it's also not bad. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is still the best JRPG of the year. Octavian says, I'm still enjoying it. Hama says, I'm enjoying the Soul Matrix a decent amount, but the game is towing a weird line of encouraging you to do it as soon as possible and not making the next dungeon afterwards high level enough. I think the game would benefit from a flag that changes encounters based on progression. That's actually a pretty good point. Because there are definitely weird moments, because the game has, unless you're doing specific missions, each area has level gated areas. So, like, when you go to level 1, you're going to find level 1 to 5 enemies, no matter if you're 60 or 90. Um, that is kind of an interesting one for it, but I think because there are not really that many different locations, I can understand that as well. Zaki says, after about 10 hours, I think it's good, but not great. Being just good is still better than being mediocre or bad at the very least. Crimson says, about halfway through and I'm enjoying it. Not all the battles are a face roll, thankfully, but I do miss taking advantage of the press turn system. The cast and style is probably the best part for me, though. Dungeons are a little bit boring, but this is a problem with JRPGs in general at the time. Jackpot says, it still flabbergasts me over the very first text box having a typo, LMAO. I have so little hope for the rest of the script at this point, I'm not even going to bother starting it until it's patched. I'll say this. The fact that recommended is typoed immediately is kind of funny, but unless there's something broken with the game that they discover shortly, I don't think it's going to get patched. Like, the, there's really not that many typos. Like it's a very well localized game, and it's just funny how immediate there is a typo in it. Huffy says, "I'm enjoying it. This is my first Atlus game on a current gen system, and it runs so smooth." Nero says, "A nice game. To be honest, I expected it to be way more harder, considering I never finished the original Soul Hackers, because some of the parts were a pain in the ass." And they're saying that they do like this now, and they do want to try the Megami Tensei series, which is awesome to hear. Jose with a nice Ringo Frost says, loving it. Colt says, I like it a lot. Honestly feels like a solid mashup between mainline SMT and Persona. The dungeons are uninspired for sure, but it's definitely a dungeon crawler. With the assist button, most battles are over pretty quickly. I love the characters and love how diverse they are in opinions. Torres Kuhn says, sad to say, decent. The one Atlus game I'm a little bit mad about. I'm only 11 hours in, but combat isn't too great. Mimi is fucking annoying, and an unneeded mascot addition. Dungeons are boring, music is decent. Hopefully it gets better. Really hope so. Ringo is the best part. I'll definitely say this. The game is not like a normal mountain where like it has highs and lows. It definitely, for me, just kept getting better the more you played it. It does start very slow. Which is funny because like it starts fast in terms of getting you to play it, but like it keeps giving you more things that'll like, oh, I want to do this now. I want to do this now. Oh, that's better. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's cool. Like stuff like that. Atherim says, I like it. Anything experimental from Atlus is a nice change of pace. It won't be winning any awards, but there is potential for a sub-series if Atlus wants to continue it. Oh, here we go. Elian Williams says, just finished it. I know, I have no life. Congratulations. Is it the best game I've played? No. Is it the best RPG I've played? Also no. But overall, I really did enjoy it. Somnium Vestige says, I can safely say its sales are not going to bode well for future spin-offs. Bullwar89 says, loving it so far. Ringo is the best sassy protagonist. Elden Lord, I appreciate your comment of saying I'm still on Xenoblade 3, Brownie Face. I'm the opposite, so we can trade off then at least. Neo Tony Soprano says, very good JRPG. Frame Prime Danny Tran says, the dungeons are quite small, and the locations are easy to find. I love the visuals of the game, though. Some of the easiest JRPG side quests I've played. Jax the Boonie says, Ringo is best girl, hands down, no debates. You will not hear any arguing from me. HB Potato Man says, it's very okay. The best 7 out of 10 I played this year. Yeah, like it is. I think that's literally what I said with Riku last year. Last time on the podcast. It is without a doubt one of the best 7 out of 10s I've played. Like, it's funny. It's such a good 7 out of 10. I'd probably give it an 8, but like, you know what I mean. I'm going to wait until payday, but I really do want to play it, says Sam Werrick. Double AG Vanitas says, I love it personally. I hope it sells well so it doesn't impact the Soul Hacker series as a whole. And that is it for Twitter. Okay, so now let's hear what people on Facebook have to say. Isaac says, it looks cool graphically. Gameplay-wise for me, it is a bit meh. Steed says, looks good. I see Tokyo Mirage Sessions' influence on it, and something feels off for it to be called SMT. I see its environment is too friendly to be SMT, needs to be a bit darker gameplay-wise, and is a little bit easy. Povila says, playing on very hard, overall liking, however, the high compendium and very slow walking are not the best things. That's interesting, if it's saying that it's got like a high compendium. Like, I feel like, because it's got, in the normal game, 100, and then there's over 100 if you have all the DLC. That's interesting. I don't think I've heard anyone say that about the compendium yet. Daniel Barber says, I enjoy it. Sunk in an easy 24 hours over the weekend. Feels like the game TMS should have been. The characters are great. Their backstories are just enough to make me want to grind the Soul Matrix. I wasn't expecting this to be the next killer IP from Atlus, but it is fun. Nathan Dalton says, definitely enjoying it so far. I was upset about the battle mechanic changes, but the changes made, given the story tie-in explanation, are overall really nice. I'm enjoying the new mechanics, playing on normal and still getting a decent good challenge, especially with the bosses. Leveling up outside of story progression is kind of slow, but admittedly it is still pretty easy. But I will still easily recommend it. Baz says, loving it thus far. I enjoy the cast and the pacing of the game a lot. Might not be the most advanced or deep game when it comes to plot or gameplay, but I enjoy it a lot nonetheless. Zaya says, very happy with it. The only thing I could say is that the kill the mini boss missions in the Soul Matrix are annoying because of the turn limit. Yeah, so when the Soul Matrix mini bosses, if you don't defeat them by a certain time, the enemies will basically just give you a one-shot kill. And it's kind of your way of being like, hey, if you can't beat us by this point, yeah, you've got to come back and be better or kill us faster. Stephen Yip says, I'm about 11 hours in and doing every side quest I can do before moving forward with the story. I'm enjoying the game. It's not too easy, but it's also not too hard. I'm starting to see the use of the DLC just to cut down on the level grinding for the demons I have. It's harder to have time to play the game I like when I used to be able to play games. I'm still enjoying the game a lot and really love the art style and the cast of characters. The cast is so much more animated and I like them all so far. Such a nice change from SMT5. Oddmed says 4 hours in and I really like it. Characters are very likable, really love Melody at the moment. Combat is fun and snappy, although I do miss press turn, and the music is very good. You can really tell that the UI in general are designed off of Tokyo Mirage Sessions creators. Aldo says not bad for a level 3 spinoff. Aaron Dennis says I like it, Ringo is cool. Camille says I haven't had an opinion because my shop still doesn't deliver my copy, sad face. Risei Kujikawa says, I'm still too busy with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but I will start as soon as I am finished. Maxine says, the game's so easy they took SMT out of the name. That's a choice. Ty Miller says, I'm liking it. The combat is interesting enough, and the story has taken me. Alexis Mace says, there's something comfortable about it. Not sure how to really describe it, especially since I never finished the first one. But it feels like I'm coming home. The difficulty part of that, just hard enough that you can't play like an idiot, but easy enough for it to be kind of chill. But I've also found all of the Devil Summoner games relatively refreshing, so that's not too surprising. Josh Renault says, I'm loving it. Really scratches that Persona itch. Eric says, I love it. Really good story. Sabian says, fire as fuck. Yusuke J Dub says, I love how nobody acknowledges the heavy Rido feels. Fat says, I played the game around 30 hours and it is great. Leslie Marie says, I'm about 20 hours in and loving it. Has a sweet bit of nostalgia for Persona 5 to it. I swear it's not the outfits or the music. Feels a bit more relaxed, not too difficult so far, but I can tell I already need to go back and do fusions. I've skipped the majority of dialogue, so I can't have much of an opinion on the story. I was skeptical and assumed it would not be enjoyable with my busy schedule. Thank goodness. It lets you save wherever you need to. Yes, that is actually quite the godsend. And Christopher Check says, having a blast with it so far. It oozes style, combat, and is different enough for it to feel fresh, but similar enough to be accessible. And has more strategy to it than Encore from TMS. Characters are fun, story is rock simple, and does the job. Overall, really enjoyed my time with it. Will be sad once I've 100%ed it and there's a sign they did it right. That is a great comment, Christopher. Thank you so much. And finally, from YouTube, got a handful of copies before we get out of here. It's got to be a shorter show because, like I said, I'm still at work. Contraband says, it's great so far. The music and the characters really pulled me in, but the combat loop is really satisfying and addictive. Also, I like the color purple, and I'm glad it's plastered everywhere. 1HP says, stuff I like so far. Ringo, the battle systems for the most part. The music is pretty good, and how the game looks. The game is definitely no masterpiece, obviously, so it's cool so far. Andrew Wan says, I'm a few hours in and I'm loving it. Atlus makes my favorite turn-based RPGs. Jace Face says, I'm about 20 hours in and enjoying my experience. The battle system is more forgiving than press turn, but it's still engaging and fun. I enjoy dungeon crawling. The demon recon elements make me want to explore each one thoroughly. Art and sound design are both simple and excellent. So far, it has been exciting to watch unfold. The characters are all interesting and memorable as well. Solid 7.5 to 8 so far. Crisis Rat says, trying to stay spoiler free, hopefully getting my game today. I love the art style and the little things I have seen, so I am hyped for what the character's story are going to be like. Das Haratu, what a fantastic name. Been on and off playing since launch. So far, it is my favorite of the franchise. King Lev 5150 says, really liking it so far. It has mature vibes of Catherine with the stillness kind of SMT5. That's actually a good comparison. Molly Beach says, loving it so far, pretty much in all aspects. Victor Morano says, I really like it. The story is good. The battle system is good too. The secondary missions are okay and fun. I know it's not the best JRPG around, but it has everything it needs to be fun. Danny Rubio says, the build reminds me of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which I really liked. Kyrian Ray adores the music and the characters, especially Ringo, who is the best protag we've had in the franchise. The story isn't the best of all Megaton, but it's incredibly enjoyable nonetheless. The letdown for me is the dungeon design, especially coming from the team behind TMS, which had a perfect balance of fun and difficulty with its dungeons. I also find the combat somewhat underwhelming, especially with the stack system, especially the lack of actual demon summoning outside of Sabbaths. It feels like Baby's first Megaton, but I honestly think the Neo Persona games 3, 4, and 5 function better in that role. That being said, there are skills in the game that I'd kill for mainline to have, like introverting debuffs and creating weaknesses, skills that are usually locked to bosses or special occasions like Flynn and 4A, final bosses and super bosses. I hope that it does sell well enough that we get a third branch in the Megaton permanently. That, or they could bring back Devil Survivor. Pretty please. Cool Pix Coben says, I'm having a real blast. The world and the story and the art direction. What is not to love? Carrie Mansfield said, I'm genuinely enjoying it. Is it a AAA game? No. Clearly was never meant to be. In my honest opinion, if this had not been produced by Atlus, there'd be a lot more praise for it. That is a very good point. Socially Awkward says, perfect follow-up for a Devil Summoner fan, and Persona 2 as well as Strange Journey fan. This is a dream game. Feels very PS2 Megaten, and I think it is completely intentional, and I love it. Faye Rugula says, it's amazing. Jury says, I put 80 hours into Xenoblade 3 and the combat became very win hard, lose hard. Beat the final boss by putting the game down and playing a match of League of Legends. Soul Hackers 2 runs on my Steam Deck and has been an absolute joy to play. Loving how the difficulty of the game doesn't grant you free turns for hitting just weaknesses. Lucas Nguyen says, it's a great game overall and Ringo is the best character. Ray says, I like the game because of the characters and story, but the gameplay is boring. I'm annoyed that the Soul Matrix doesn't feel optional at all because of how lame the dungeon design is for how long you stay in there. But it has a paradoxical because, ironically, because there are enough moments to come from character cutscenes you see in it, that the gameplay loop doesn't feel satisfying enough to be compared to mainline Persona. Because you aren't really challenged. For example, mainline Persona, you can't spam willy-nilly because losing turns with the enemy resist or draining or blocking it. Here, there is no incentive to not use area of attack moves. Same for the enemy side, technically. Only Ringo can use Sabbath, so I never feel punished for letting the enemy hit my weakness, and in some cases rewarded if I have Saizo's healing stack skills. Keep in mind, I'm playing on hard. I want to like this game so much because of the characters, but when the gameplay is so unfun to me, whether it has to be the battle system or the endless dungeon with backtracking, I can't help but dislike it because it's equal parts video to game. I definitely understand that. Slide TF1 says, I love it, not as much as Persona 5 or SMT5, but it's better than any other game I've played all year long. It's the only game that's come out all year that has been able to hold my attention for over 16 hours. Let's see if it keeps up. And our final one comes from Reed, who says, dungeon design is very boring and direct PS2 era. Everything else, very good. All right, everybody. I went a lot longer reading all of those off than I expected, but I appreciate you all for writing them in. I'm going to get this episode uploaded as quickly as possible for everyone to enjoy. So all the links and stuff for where to find us and support us will be in the comments below. Sorry again, this was a shorter one. I do also want to thank everyone. August was our 10th anniversary, and I probably should have done something more special, but I've been trying to get Soul Hackers 2 reviewed. So Soul Hackers 2 is really what's been slowing that down for me. So maybe I'll do something later in September and make it like my personal birthday with the anniversary thing in mind, but hard to really say. Either way, if you enjoy the show, subscribing on YouTube helps, following on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts helps. If you'd like to help directly support the show, you can go to patreon.com/SMTN. Donate as little as $1 a month to become a fan, get exclusive perks, or $5 and up and get the executive producer tier. All of those perks really, really, really help. But either way, listening to the show, any kind of form of stuff like that, it is always super appreciated. More professional of a show will be next week. So look forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you all for dealing with me for like the last almost 40 minutes. Have a good rest of your week. Keep enjoying Soul Hackers. If you're not playing Soul Hackers, tell me what you're playing in the comments below. Did I not read your opinion on Soul Hackers 2? Also comment that below, or tweet at us, or put it on the Facebook group or the Discord. I want to hear from everybody out there. So let me know. Can't wait to hear from you all. Have a good rest of your week. Bye, everybody.